So I decided to write an article because I was increasingly concerned that the SNP and the Yes campaign were using very deliberately techniques of optimism and positivity in their campaign. Now that sounds harmless, it sounds like that's good, they're coming over as positive. But actually they were doing it in such a thorough way because what they wanted was a 100% positive campaign that they became so dominant in that way that anyone that ever mentioned anything that was at all negative, at all a problem, was being shouted down as scaremongering. These are very, very deliberate strategies they're using to be 100% positive. And it permeates everything that they're saying and doing. Now, there's something superficially quite attractive about that, but all I'm saying is, when you look at it, is that how people would live their lives? That they would take the most optimistic scenario for whether they were going to borrow money or not? And we also know, and we're all suffering from the fact that some businesses, particularly the banks, were operating like that. You know, Fred Goodwin from the Royal Bank of Scotland was saying, "Don't bring me your problems." So it's hardly surprising that they ran out of money. It's not a good strategy to not paying attention to pessimists. And that's what Seligman would say, great, have your chief person, the visionary who's thinking about the future and being optimistic, but make sure that that person is surrounded by people saying, hang on a minute, have you thought about this? And this is what the SNP are very deliberately trying to silence, because as soon as anyone says anything that might be a problem, they're being scaremongering, they're pessimistic, they're not to be paid attention to. A major strategy of the SNP is to be optimistic, but they do become pessimistic when it suits them. So they're pessimistic to do with anything to do with England other than getting a currency union, but they're pessimistic about whether Labour would win the next election, you know, whether England would want to withdraw from the EU, the rise of UKIP, Boris Johnson becoming Prime Minister, you name it, they're pessimistic on that. And also, in recent weeks, they've become very pessimistic about the NHS in Scotland and whether or not it would be seriously undermined because of staying in the Union. I identify with quite a lot of the critique they're putting forward of the Westminster system. I think there's a lot of idealists there who are thinking, you know, we could have this brave new world and it would be so much better. And I share the values of a lot of the people that are arguing for that. I just don't believe that that is what's going to happen. And that's what I go on and argue in my article, that actually if you look at it with the different currency options that would be in front of Scotland, I think it looks like there would be really, really big cuts and a very, very big opportunity for the right wing in Scotland, the right wing money men, to become really quite dominant. And you just have to look at who some of them are that are lining up to be really enthusiastic Yes voters. I mean, the other day, Rupert Murdoch was tweeting his support for the Yes campaign and saying everything's up for grabs. So you wonder, what's this? You know, a Scottish offshoot of Fox News. I mean, I'm not by nature a cynical person, but I think there's a big disconnect between the people that are at festivals with a blank sheet of paper or a hope tree or whatever, writing down what they want Scotland to be like, and actually what it will be like. And I think a lot of Labour people who are deciding to vote yes are voting yes on the basis that they think they're going to get Scotland as it is now, without the Tories and a bit nicer. And I have to say, I'm sceptical about that. So while I would love to think it was the case, I don't think it will be.